Welcome, everybody, and thank you for coming to this Climate Hive Connect event, Protecting Digital IP with Final Design. My name is Kevin Drolet of Climate Hive, and I've been lucky enough to learn about digital IP from today's speaker, Pooria Sohi, over the last several weeks. The story of Final Design is a great one, and I hope you find it as important as I did. And I would normally give a little longer intro, but Pooria's got it. It's just got to come from him. So now I'd like to introduce today's speaker. Pooria Sohi is Director of ID and Marketing at Final Aim. Pooria is an industrial designer and former architect with a passion for helping startups and major enterprises bring groundbreaking ideas to life. So with that, Pooria, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Kevin. Well, good morning, everyone. Really appreciate you joining us and giving us your time today. I represent Final Aim. We are an IP and design data management platform, and I'm just really excited to tell you about Final Design, our first product, and how we got here and why we exist. But just very quickly, a little bit about myself. I'm a practicing industrial designer. I joined Final Aim because I really believe that what they're doing is super helpful for creatives in any and all fields, and really anyone who's producing stuff, especially in the age of AI. And I think one of the other things that's really cool about the company is that not only do they help protect creatives against the threat of AI, they enable creatives to use AI in a way that actually is beneficial to everybody. But I'm jumping ahead of myself. I'm an industrial designer who has worked across a bunch of different fields in the last, I'm older than I look, 15 years. I do a lot of things in the automotive space. Probably like best known for helping make utterly ridiculous cars. You may have seen a Volkswagen EV concept a few years ago. I worked on the Pikes Peak Hill Climb Huna Pegasus, which is this bright pink Porsche that does 1100 horsepower. I also do more serious things in the sports and medical field, and have worked on things like prosthetics and orthotics. So I've got a really broad spectrum of experience, which I feel very privileged to be able to say. But also, I think it's meant that I've seen what designers do across a whole spectrum of things, and there's kind of one thing that ties all of us together, and that's dealing with our IP and dealing with our design data. So moving on from me, the company. To the right there is Yas and Masa. They are the CDO and CEO of Final Aim, and we all have a creative background. To the left there is one of our buddies from Yamaha. We've worked with them a few times, but basically, Final Aim exists because at one point or another, every designer has worked with a client or worked on a project, and later on seen their IP or their design data somewhere where it shouldn't be. It happens to all of us. Like, I don't know how often this has happened to the rest of you, but I remember a few years ago just walking through a shopping mall, and my eye caught something, and I look and I'm like, I that's my design, but that project got canned, or at least I thought it did. And it puts you in an uncomfortable position. Like, what can you do about that? 9 out of 10 times as designers, it's kind of nothing we can do about that. But that's why Final Aim exists, and why it is that we're so passionate about protecting IP and helping designers manage their data. I want to tell you a story about someone else. Again, talked about myself a little bit too much there. This is Alora, also known as Oakita. Some of you may have seen her work online already. She's this really incredible game art designer who does these really beautiful art prints down there in the bottom left. I actually have a few of them at home myself. Big fan of her work. Elora is an independent creative, and I've been talking to her for the last few months, and she's shared with me that in the last 4 years alone, she's had to deal with multiple dozens of IP infringement cases where like a drop shipping website will just pinch one of her designs or her work, slap it on a t-shirt or some merchandise and sell it without her permission. Now she's just one person. She is a really successful independent creative, but she can't fight all of these cases and she can't deal with all of them. And that's one of the things that we help solve because we can prove that you own something, and then help you shut down the cases where it's being used without your permission. Also can do a lot of really positive stuff too. So IP, intellectual property, it's the thing that you don't think about until you have to. Like, we're designers, we do design. That's what we're best at. We're best at creating stuff. We're not really in the business of busying ourselves with admin. I know certainly I'm not. Some of you may be better at it than I am, but IP management and data management is not like a top priority consideration for us, right? So that's really kind of the problem, right? Like, we don't think about IP until we have to, whether that's like moving documentation out to shipping or sending it to a third party that you're collaborating with. Sometimes it's just like you're transferring and reviewing your data with clients. Like, these are all moments of IP risk. And then, of course, there's the legal disputes, right? And now with the age of AI, like, we're constantly seeing things that look like copyright infringements of creative work that exists or pre-exists, and we have to be able to prove that, like, hey, I own the thing that is a derivative of, and you didn't get my permission to make that thing. So IP management, I get it. It's boring until it's a problem. You lose revenue from copycats. You got liability issues when something is out there that looks like it's got your name on it. Not to mention damage does to your brand. You're wasting time on admin, and then there's the legal fees. And most of the time, we can't afford the legal fees. Some of you may be familiar with this story. So a few years ago, Peak Design had to contest this with Amazon. If you're not familiar with Peak Design, they're a great bag design company. They make these really awesome camera bags. They're based here in the Bay Area, and they started life with Kickstarter. So it was a small, humble beginnings company that's now doing millions in revenue, selling their products globally. They've gotten to the point where they're big enough to want to move beyond direct to consumer and have their products available on Amazon so people can buy directly through Amazon. They did that. It didn't take very long for that relationship with Amazon to sour because Amazon Basics created a copycat bag and undercut the cost and started selling it. Now, even a company like Peak Design that's doing millions in revenue found themselves in a position where, like, there's not a lot they can do about that. So what did they do? Well, they made a sarcastic video congratulating Amazon on their new bag design. And thankfully, they got the kind of public outcry that they were looking for in response to that, which had Amazon shut down that copycat bag. That, again, is not an opportunity that's really kind of available to most of us, and sort of really reflects how we kind of have to, or we're obligated until this point, to deal with these kinds of situations. So that can be a little overwhelming. I get it. Like, I've shared a lot of like doom and gloom stuff, but this is where we step in and we present a solution that works. So this is Final Design. We're a single source platform for your design data and intellectual property. Like, we solve for all of these problems. We are designers by trade ourselves, which is why we built this in the first place and why we believe in it so much. So the way we work, and how we prove that we can work, we use a smart contract system. So every time you upload something to the Final Design platform, it automatically generates a smart contract that proves that you own that particular piece of design data and the IP associated with it. We've had this supervised by law firms globally, so here in the US, as well as in Europe and Japan. So if you're working internationally, you don't have to worry about this system not being recognized or having to deal with it being contested. It's pretty bulletproof. And we're a design platform, right? Like I said, we're all designers by trade. And so we wanted to we were thinking about collaboration from the beginning. So we don't want to add another tool for you to have to open up. Like if you're like me, your desktop is just slathered with CAD tools and design tools you use daily. You don't need another one on top of that. So we're a platform. So we're constantly building integrations with industry standard tools. So if you use Fusion 360 and you have a Final Design account, you can actually just push your design data straight from Fusion 360 to Final Design. You don't have to open up something new. I want to share one other story with you. This is with Yamaha. So Yamaha's design team was really interested in using AI as part of their workflow as a way of amplifying what their creative team can do. Now, if you don't know this, anything that you generate with AI, like AI generated images, in stasis have no attributable copyright, meaning that anything that you just like, if you throw something in Midjourney or you throw something at at DALL-E, and it generates an image for you, that image on its own has no attributable copyright. That's international copyright law currently. However, if you use that particular element, say as a concept or part of a mood board or an inspiration element, to then downstream create a real product, now that's attributable because it's part of your creative workflow, and you can show that something with human intervention was made downstream of that piece. Well, that presents a problem, right? If when you, at the point of creating it, there's no attributable copyright, then the stuff that you do downstream of it is sort of Creative Commons. Anyone can take what you did with that concept piece and then go and make their own derivative, and like there's nothing you can do about it. Well, what we were able to do is help them connect all of that AI generated stuff at the mood boarding and concepting phase, and show the connectivity to what they built with the actual real version of this. So there's a real one out there. You should go check it out. It's a really cool, cute little track there. So that all of the IP was protected. And the coolest part to me, at least, is that we took what is typically a 6-month cycle to design these sort of things, and we chopped it in half. So their design team was really amplified by being able to use AI in an intelligent application, not taking over any of the creative process, but helping inspire and augment what the designer's intent was, and then tie it all together with what they go and design themselves. We showed this off at the Tokyo Auto Salon last year. It's the biggest car show in Japan. If you're a fan of cars and you're a fan of Japanese culture, or you fall anywhere in that Venn diagram, strongly recommend you make a trip out to Tokyo Auto Salon one year. It's super cool. And this collaboration we did with Yamaha last year was so successful that they worked with us again. We collaborated with them a second time. And then this year, we took what we built as the processes and workflows to get to that first vehicle, and we actually multiplied that by 8. So we produced 8 presentation-ready concept vehicles for Yamaha in collaboration with their team using Final Design. And actually took 2 of those vehicles and built physical prototypes and showed them off at Tokyo Auto Salon this year. So we helped them generate over 2,500 design concepts using both AI and standard design work. We attributed all the intellectual property associativity that they needed to all of that, and then helped them expedite the workflow to go from like general loose concept to fully realized design intent. And you can see one of the concept vehicles down there in the bottom right. And again, if you're like me and you're just kind of into cars, I just think it's kind of hysterical that this ATV concept vehicle's got a set of Workmeisters on there. Just really cool. So I've done a lot of telling, and I want to do some showing. Some of you might be thinking like this sounds really cool, but it also sounds really complicated. It isn't. So I've got a little demo here that is from start to finish, like signing in and adding your IP to show you how all of this works. It's just 2 minutes from one end to the other. So we're just going to go ahead and sign in here. We're a web-based platform, so you can get access to this anywhere. Once you sign in, you're sort of presented with your general view. You can see all of the stuff that you've recently uploaded to the platform. And then on the left there, projects as they are collected through to your specific projects and the design data collected to them. So there's a light level design management system built in here. And when you click through, you can see whether it was generated with AI or not, if the intellectual property has been authenticated, as well as the associated contracts relative to that project. So this is a dummy project. We've got a little lorem ipsum NDA in here, but you can add those elements in so that everything is connected together. And at this stage, we're just going to go ahead and add our client in. So if you want to give them access so they can see progress on your work in real time without you needing to email them, they'll get notifications. You can add them in as a contractee so they can view what you're working on. And you don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry about the security of that intellectual property. Everything has a smart contract associated with it. It's all secured, and you can just keep going with your design work. So at this phase, if we click through to the authentication, you'll see here that's the smart contract. So that's what proves that this is yours. It's timestamped as well, so that there's a date associated with it. And we actually use blockchain tech at the background to verify all of this. So if final design is ever down for maintenance, you can still access your smart contract directly through the blockchain system we're using. We're also built in a way that's agnostic to the blockchain tech. So if the system we're using today doesn't work, we can migrate all of that to something else and you keep all of your associativity. So it really is that simple. Like in 2 minutes, you can get your data uploaded, you can get your data secured and just keep rolling. And this is doing it directly. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're using something like Fusion 360, you can just hit push and just keep rocking. You don't even have to open the platform up. So if you're interested in trying this out, we're available today for any team larger than 5. Just reach out to us and we can get you set up with a custom solution. We're also in closed beta for freelancers and individuals. So you'll get platform access. And then for teams larger than 5, if there's a custom solution that you're looking for or some kind of specific integration, we can help deliver on that. So if you want to reach out to me directly, there's my email address. Please go ahead. Feel free to scan that QR code if you want to join the wait list. And thanks for coming along. And that's the team there again. That's Masa, our CEO, on the left, myself in the middle, and Yasu, our CDO, on the right.
Thanks so much, Pooria. So we are going to enter into our Q&A stage. So we have some questions coming in, and I'm just going to start throwing them at you. The first one is, what happens when the platform is offline? So I guess can you still access the data?
Yeah. So if the platform is offline, you can still access your smart contracts. So you can still access all of the you can access directly through the blockchain all of the smart contracts to prove the IP management. But if it's offline, you still what we're working on right now is an offline mode, so that if you need to access the data and the system is offline, you'll still have access to that.
Perfect. There's a question about legal disputes. So how does that work?
Yeah. So let's say you are dealing with a legal dispute where you need to prove the ownership. One of the single most costly element of that for you is usually the discovery phase. So historically, the way that works is you have to send a lawyer a huge data dump of here's all the emails with the conversations back and forth that led to the statement of work. Here's the statement of work. Then they have to go and figure out the timelines on everything, prove that these things are real, and then finally take that to dispute, whether that's cease and desist or damages. That's what costs creatives a ton of money in legal dispute. What we do is eliminate all of that. You basically take the smart contract and your dispute to a lawyer, and it's an open and shut case of like, this is the proof that I own it. It's smart. It's time stamped, and it is being proven in a completely tamper-proof system. This is why we've already had this verified and checked by lawyers, and that's what basically closes a legal dispute for you far quicker.
Perfect. And I did see that there's some hand raisers with the attendees. So we're just doing
Mhm.
the question and answer through the Q&A. So if you do have a question, please put it through the Q&A. Um, Another question is, how does Final Aim ensure the authenticity and intellectual property protection design work?
So that's where the smart contract comes in. So the way a smart contract works is it creates an association between whatever it is that you upload to the platform, whether that's scans of your sketches, whether that's your 3D data, maybe it's an Adobe file. It timestamps that and it gets uploaded to the blockchain. The smart contract is basically the bridge between your blockchain timestamp and your piece in your design data. All of that is completely tamper proof, and that's what proves that the IP is yours.
Can you talk about basically how designers would collaborate with engineers and developers, like at Final Aim?
Yeah. So if you're using Final Design as your data management platform, so I imagine if any of you are like me, you were probably previously using, or you're currently using, you're currently, excuse me, using Google Drive or Dropbox or some other tool like that to store your data in. And when you are working with an engineering team, you're either emailing it to them or you're giving them access to the data directly. The way that it works with us is that you can add them in as a contractee or a contractor, depending on the relationship you have with them, and they'll get access to the design data through our platform. And that way you can track and trace like what's going on with your design data as it's being used.
Got it. Um, Great. So a couple more questions for you. How does Final Aim prevent taking someone else's work that is not on Final Aim? In other words, plagiarism and then using Final Design to falsely claim ownership.
That is a great question. That is a really good question. So, of course, we have a standard EULA. There are certain waivers and verifications that you have to go through as you work through that. That is as much as I can say on the subject right now, because there are certain developments that we're doing to kind of further lock that down. It's a real concern, and it's a serious thing that we're working on.
Great. How is the blockchain cost managed with uploading and interfacing, etc.?
Oh, you're not. So it depends on the contract type you have, right? So if you're an individual on a subscription base, your subscription defines how much data that you upload. And if you're enterprise, it's a completely separate model. But we're not using like we're not. I please forgive me. I actually forget the name of the exact blockchain system we're using right now, but it's like fractions of a penny per blockchain token. So there's no cost passed on to you. Like we're using a super low cost system intentionally because the blockchain is not the important part. The smart contract is the important part for us.
Got it. Poria, this is a question just from me, but I just wanted to get your like since you're in this industry and you're deep into this technology, what's the sort of big picture for the role of design evolving with Web3 and Web3 technologies? Like, how do you see that playing out? Just
That's a
just
good question.
where
I
you sit.
think um, I'm going to try and give as succinct of an answer to this question as possible. So, before final, like for context, before final aim, um, as a as an industrial designer, um, one of my first studio spaces was co-located right next to a senior developer for Ethereum. So I've had exposure to blockchain technology for a little bit longer than most people. I think as a tech, its primary use and its most functional applications are exactly the kind of things that we're using it for. And that's why I believe so strongly in final aim and final design. If you're using blockchain as a ledger, which is what it fundamentally is, to create associativity, to prove intellectual property ownership, to prove ownership of anything, really, like that's the best application of it. And in the face of the kind of double-edged sword technologies like AI, it's going to be more essential than ever to really prove that something is real and something is yours.
Got it. Yeah, I thought just on the presentation. Oh, well, let me throw this question that came in. Uh, what's the difference between final aim and final design? If you can clarify.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is one of those like just kind of cultural moments. So final aim is the company, final design is the product. So we have plans to make other tools for designers. So I apologize for that confusion. But we as a company are final aim, and our first product that's available out there is final design.
Got it. Um, and then in the presentation, this is a question for me again, but in the presentation, you talk about AI. Obviously, these AI, design generating tools are becoming sophisticated. Can you just once again talk about like how final aim and final design work within that? Because you talked about it in the presentation, but I think it's worth highlighting.
Yeah, so when you create something with a Gen AI tool, the current international copyright laws state that image, because it has no human intervention in it, does not qualify as copyrightable data. Where it gets complicated is if you're like me, or some of the other designers that I work with or collaborate with or just know in my personal network, you might be using Gen AI to do stuff like mood boarding. And if you're using it for mood boarding, and then you go and you make something that's derived from that mood board, where it becomes a problem is that anyone can take anyone can take that mood board and go and do something with it themselves. But when you show that you made something that was inspired by the Gen AI stuff that you did, that Gen AI element is now part of your intellectual property like chain, basically. So it's sort of the equivalent of like, hey, this sketch that I did is the inspiration or the starting point for this product that I made. The problem is that like when you're or the challenge that we face is when you're doing that, you need to be able to prove the associativity and the connectivity, and that's one of the things that we solve for.
Well, this has been fantastic. We did bill for a 30-minute conversation here today, so we're probably at time. We do have a question I'm going to read. How do we get involved with creating products with Final Aim for designers or joining the company? So I would imagine they contact
That's
you.
a good question. Drop us a line on LinkedIn. The team is going to be growing very soon. So yeah, hit us up straight through LinkedIn on our page. Let us know what your background is and what you're interested in doing, and we'll talk to you.
Pooria, thank you so much for the presentation today. Super interesting stuff, and we'll look forward to the growth of Final Aim.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.